You're listening to Embrace Your Snake, the #1 podcast for creatives and entrepreneurs that have big ideas and just need a little help to get them out into the world. I'm your host, Michael Jackson, and today we're talking about living outside of the box. So what does it mean to live outside of the box, be outside of the box, be outside of the norms of society? I think that is something we need to talk about. All my life, I have been somebody that has thought maybe differently than most of the people around me. I didn't really fit into the things like a normal 9-to-5 job. And the reason for that most of the time, now that I've thought about it over all these years, is that the things that I looked at, I wanted to improve, but the improvements didn't fit with the system. And then you go, Michael, well, if they didn't fit with the system, how are they improvements? Well, there are things that, you look at and you go, well, if you would just do A before B, then you wouldn't even need to do C. But the problem is, in a lot of corporate society, things have to have an order. There is an order to things. Unfortunately, that order to things isn't something that ever fit into my lifestyle. I was not ever able to work with those constraints because why does it need to be that way? And if you're similar to me, you often ask, why do things need to be that way? And can't they be different so that we can make them quote unquote better? And I think the answer to that is yes. And if your thinking is always, I can make these things better, that upsets a lot of people. That tips over the apple cart and you don't fit into society all the time. Is it better to just go along, or is it better to step outside the bounds? For me, it's always been better to step outside the bounds because I couldn't fit in. There was no way for me to understand how one needs to work from 9 to 5 to get a job done. Why can't I work from 12 till 2, get just as much work done, take a break, and then work midnight till 4? Those sorts of things. That is outside the bounds of normal work behavior. So how do you know if you're an out-of-the-box thinker, living outside of the box, thinking outside beyond the lines, coloring outside the lines, or if you just or have a bad attitude? Well, the question, I think, is one that semi-answers itself, because you can be both, especially if you're in an environment where that type of behavior doesn't make sense to normal people. Is the glass half empty? Is the glass half full? Or is it simply a glass that has maybe some water in it? Who knows if it's actually water? It's just something that's clear, right? And it can be used for a multitude of things. It could just be a glass for taking a medication. It could be a glass of water that has no other purpose than to show the colors of the rainbow as the sun comes through it. It could just be a glass that you're going to use later to put a plant in. It could be a glass of water that does nothing more than sit there and you can actually watch little bubbles spin around in the glass. And because you're thinking outside of your box, that glass of water is neither half empty nor is it half full. It is simply a glass of water that can be used for multiple things. Is it up? Is it down? Is it tall? Is it wide? Those questions are something that can be answered in various ways. I don't know if something's tall. It depends on if it's next to something that's taller. It depends on if tall makes sense in the situation. It's only tall if Gulliver in his travels with the Lilliputans is in the right location at the right time. Sometimes it's tall, sometimes it's miniature. Those things don't matter. If that's the way that you think and you're thinking outside the box, then it's very hard often to have a regular 9-to-5 job. If someone says, write an essay, and your essay turns out to be 4 sentences long but gets across the idea, is it an essay or is it just somebody being lazy? Or is it somebody being creative? I would say that it can be a 4-sentence essay. I'm saying that it could be a 10,000 word or 10,000 page book, essay, report. It depends on what you need it for. Maybe I need that essay just to be a paperweight and hold the door open. So how do creatives live in a world where most people look at a stoplight and it means stop, and we look at a stoplight and it means, oh my gosh, that would be a great picture when the sun's behind it? How do we live in a world that says the brake for the car is on the floor when we all know that the brake could easily be controlled by closing your eyes and blinking twice, or any other number of ways that we could have brakes? We could have brakes on the handlebars, our handlebars, steering wheel. We could have brakes that are voice controlled now. We don't have to have brakes on the floor of our car. We don't need to have instruments made out of the traditional types of materials. Anything could be an instrument. My bedpost could be an instrument. Ask any Foley artist, and they will tell you that the sound coming from a bedpost could be someone knocking on a door, or it could be something dropping on a floor. What is this sound? Is that someone knocking on a door? No, it's me knocking on my bedpost. But the creative person looks at it and sees it a different way. So how do we cope? I cope by watching the things around me, bringing them into my world, and just doing what I need to do with them, and without telling the outside world what I'm going to do with certain things. If I want to build a company that is completely virtual, I simply just build it. If I have friends that say, I can't work here in this environment anymore, I say to them, you don't have to. Why don't you go somewhere else and work and do it virtually? If I have friends that say, all of my friends drive me crazy, I say to them, get rid of those friends and you need new friends. I'm fairly passionate about this subject because being a black sheep myself, I have lived it all of my life. So we're going to do another episode on this, probably very soon, and I'm going to get more into the details of how to deal with certain aspects of being a creative in a non-creative, maybe linear, maybe world. We're going to figure that out. For right now, let's just realize that a lot of us are different. A lot of us see things not the same way as everybody else. And as a unit, as a team, as a group of people, we have each other for support. Creative entrepreneurs see things differently, hear things differently, feel things differently, and that doesn't make them wrong. It just makes them different than the way everyone else sees them. This series is going to continue. For right now, let's leave it at we are different, we see things differently, and that's okay. I'm Michael Jackson. Peace.